Civilian investors have to put 25% down to buy a rental building in Kansas City. A veteran can buy the same building with zero, same units, same rent, same tenants paying the mortgage. And most veterans have no idea this is even allowed. Today I'm walking you through the VA loan house hack. How to buy a property with up to 4 units using your VA home loan. Live in one unit, rent out the others, and let your tenants cover most of your payment. Zero down, no monthly mortgage insurance. I'm going to show you the real math on a Kansas City duplex, the 75% rental income rule that boosts your buying power before you even have a tenant, and how this stacks up against FHA and conventional loans. I will also give you the honest answer on whether 3 rent checks can really cover a whole mortgage, and near the end, the 2 underwriting requirements almost every house hack video skips. If you do not know them, your deal dies in underwriting. Stay for that. Quick ID so you know who's talking. I'm Joe Nelson, Kansas City realtor, licensed mortgage originator, and a 21-year retired Air Force veteran. All right, let's get into it. First, the rule itself, because half the veterans I talk to do not believe me when I say it. The VA home loan is not just for single family. It allows you to buy a property with 1 to 4 units as long as you live in one of them as your primary residence. That is straight out of the VA's own lending guidelines. Buy a duplex, live in one side, rent out the other. Buy a fourplex, live in 1 unit, rent 3. Zero down payment on the whole building. No monthly mortgage insurance, ever, which is money in your pocket every single month compared to nearly every other loan in America. Investors have a name for this: house hacking. They write books about it. They build entire strategies around it. And the tool they wish they had is the one sitting unused in your wallet right now if you're a veteran. Think about what this means for a young airman or soldier. Your first home purchase is not just a place to live. It is an income-producing building where other people help pay your mortgage while you build equity in all 4 units, not just the one you sleep in. If you're sitting there thinking, this sounds too good to be legal, keep watching because the government actually designed it this way. The VA wants every veteran building wealth and stability. This is your VA home loan benefit working exactly as intended. Now, the part that makes this strategy work on paper, the 75% rental income rule. When you buy a multi-unit property with a VA loan, the lender can count 75% of the projected rent from the units you will not live in as part of your qualifying income. Projected, as in before you have a single tenant. The appraiser gives an opinion of fair market rent for those units, and underwriting counts 3/4 of it. Let me put a real number on it. Here's the VA loan duplex math. Say you find a duplex in the Northland for $400,000. The appraiser says the other side rents for $1,600 a month. The lender counts 75% of that, which is $1,200 a month, and adds it to your income for qualifying purposes. That's like getting a $14,400 raise in 1 year the moment you sign the contract. A sergeant's income suddenly qualifies like an officer's. Now scale it. A fourplex at $650,000 with 3 rented units at maybe $1,450 each. That's $4,350 a month in gross rent. The lender counts 75%, which is $3,260 a month towards your qualification. Run that against the mortgage payment and your out-of-pocket share of the housing costs can drop below what you would pay renting an apartment. Except now you own a $650,000 building, your tenants are paying it down, and every dollar of appreciation across all 4 units belongs to you. Now remember, you are responsible for maintenance on all 4 units, don't forget that part. But why does the lender only count 75% and not all of it? Well, maintenance is one part and vacancy is another. Units sit empty, water heaters die. The 25% haircut is underwriting's cushion and is the same cushion whether the loan is VA, FHA, or conventional. The difference is what the VA lets you do with it, which is qualify with 0 down. One honest note on the numbers I used. Those are example figures to show you the math. Prices and rents move building by building and block by block in this market. So when we run this for you, we run it on the actual property with the actual appraiser rent figures. That is the conversation I have with veterans every week. Here's where I put on the loan officer hat because I told you at the top there are 2 requirements almost nobody covers. This is the fine print, and I would rather you hear it from me now rather than later from an underwriting 3 weeks into your contract. Requirement number 1, reserves. If you want to count that projected rental income to qualify, the VA requires you have 6 months of full mortgage payments in the bank. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. On a payment of $3,000 a month, that's $18,000 sitting in savings after closing. Could potentially be sitting in your TSP as well though. 0 down does not mean $0. Requirement number 2, experience. To count projected rent, VA guidelines want to see that you have been a landlord before or that you have a background in managing property. No experience, there is a workaround most lenders accept. Hire a professional property management firm and the experience box gets checked. It costs you a percentage of that rent, usually around 8 to 10%, but it turns a declined file into an approved one. And to be clear, if you buy a duplex and qualify on your own income alone without counting any rent, most of this fine print never touches you. The rent still shows up every month. It just was not needed to get you approved. That is the cleanest version of this whole strategy. Two more pieces of fine print while I'm at it. Occupancy. You have to move into one of the units within 60 days of closing and genuinely live there as your primary residence. The VA is not against you being a landlord. The VA is against you pretending to live somewhere you do not. And the funding fee. Most first-time VA users pay a one-time funding fee of 2.15% at zero down, which can be rolled into the loan. If you have a service-connected disability rating, though, you're likely exempt and it disappears. Between the fee and no monthly mortgage insurance, VA still beats the alternatives, and I will prove it right now. Let's line the VA loan up against the other ways to buy a multi-unit property, because this is where veterans realize what they're holding. FHA, the loan most first-time house hackers use. It requires 3.5% down, so on that $650,000 fourplex, you are writing a check for about $22,750 for that down payment. Then you pay mortgage insurance every single month. And with the minimum down payment, it stays on the loan for its entire life. And FHA has a trap on the bigger buildings. It's called the self-sufficiency test, and it applies to 3 and 4 unit properties. The property's rental income from all units has to cover the entire mortgage payments on its own, or FHA will not do the loan. In this market, with today's prices and rates, a huge share of 3 and 4 unit deals fail that test. The building can be a great deal, and FHA still says no. The VA loan has no self-sufficiency test, though. The deal that killed the FHA loan doesn't kill the VA. All right, conventional. Owner-occupied, you can get into a 2 to 4 unit property at 5% down. That's $32,500 on our fourplex, plus monthly mortgage insurance until you build enough equity. And if you're not living there, an investor buying that same building is putting 25% down, which is over $162,000. Read those numbers back. The civilian investor needs $162,500. The FHA buyer needs $22,750 plus permanent mortgage insurance if the deal even passes the test. The veteran needs zero down and pays no monthly mortgage insurance. That is not a small edge. That is a different game entirely, and you earned it. Now, let me say the part about the house hack that influencers often don't want to talk about. Is it realistic to expect 3 rent checks to cover the entire mortgage on a fourplex you just bought with zero down? Probably not. And you deserve to know why before you fall in love with the strategy. Think about the investor buying that same $650,000 building with 25% down. Their loan is $487,500. Yours is the full purchase price, plus the funding fee if you roll that in. Bigger loan, bigger payment, same rents coming in the door. So the building that cash flows for the investor on day one might leave you covering a gap of a few $100s a month out of your own pocket. Here's why the gap does not kill the deal. Compare your share of the payment to what a decent apartment costs you in this metro. If your piece of the mortgage is a few $100 and rent anywhere else is 4 times that, you're still winning by a mile. And unlike rent, every payment is building equity into a building you own. The investor spent $162,500 to get their cash flow. You spent nothing to get yours started. Active duty, this next part's for you, because your BAH changes this entire equation. Your housing allowance shows up every month whether you rent an apartment, live in base housing, or own a fourplex. Point it at a building instead of a landlord. If the tenants cover most of the payment and your BAH covers the rest, your actual out-of-pocket can be zero, and anything left over is yours to keep. You're getting paid to build equity. That is the military housing hack at its strongest. And this sets up the smartest question I've heard a service member ask about this strategy. If the numbers do work and rents plus BAH cover everything, what do you do with the extra? Well, there's 2 schools of thought there. School 1, throw the extra BAH at the principal. Pay the building down faster, build up equity quicker, and set yourself up to refi or pull equity down the road. School 2, stash it. Build a pile of cash for your next building. And here's the piece no one really talks about or connects the dots on. Depending on how much of your VA entitlement is tied up in this first building, your second purchase might not be a VA loan at all. It might have to be conventional. And a conventional loan on a pure investment property wants 20 to 25% down. That stash might literally be your next down payment. There is no universal right answer. It depends on your entitlement, your rate, your timeline, and where the Army or Air Force or whatever plans to send you next. That is exactly the 10-minute conversation I have with veterans all the time, and it's worth having before you buy the first building, not after. My contact info is right below the video. Now, the question every active duty member is already asking: What happens when the Army or Air Force hands you orders? This is where the VA loan fits military life better than any loan in the country. Your commitment was to move in within 60 days and occupy the property as your primary residence in good faith. Orders change. The VA knows that better than anyone. When you PCS, you can move out, rent your unit to a fourth tenant, and keep the VA loan exactly as it is. Same rate, same terms. At that point, you own a fully rented 4-unit building in Kansas City that you bought with zero down. The property that started as your house hack just became a pure investment property, and you never had to refinance or requalify to make that happen. And here's the move after the move. Depending on your remaining entitlement, you may be able to use the VA loan again at your next duty station and buy another home while keeping this building. I made an entire video on that strategy, how veterans hold multiple VA loans at once using bonus entitlement, and I'll link it at the end of this one. Buy a fourplex at your first duty station. PCS, rent all 4 units, buy again. That is how enlisted paychecks turn into solid real estate portfolios. Slowly and legally, and with the strongest loan in America doing the heavy lifting. If you want to go deeper on this, I have a full playlist on VA loans linked below, and that video I mentioned, the VA loan wealth strategy most veterans never use, covers exactly how to use your entitlement a second time without selling your first property. It is the perfect next video after this one, and I'll link it right here. I promised you the 2 deal killers, and you got them. 6 months of reserves if you're counting projected rent, and documented landlord experience or property manager on the file. Now you know more about VA multi-unit lending than most loan officers I talk to. Want to pressure test your own numbers? I have a free mortgage calculator on my website. Plug in a duplex price, plug in a rent figure, and see what your real monthly portion looks like with zero down and no mortgage insurance. It takes 2 minutes and it does not ask for a phone call. I also created a VA relocation guide for Kansas City. You can go to our website and download that if you'd like. Before I let you go, you should know why I care about this. I spent 21 years in the Air Force, all of it here in Kansas City. Nobody ever sat me down and explained a lot of these things to me. I learned it along the way, and then I got licensed on both sides of the business as a realtor and a mortgage originator. So veterans here would have one person who could see the whole board. I make these videos because I want to work with you. That is the whole reason that I do this. If you're a veteran or a service member anywhere near Kansas City and the VA loan house hack math has your wheels turning, call me. Even outside of Kansas City, if I can't do it, I can connect you with somebody that can. My contact info is right below the video. A quick conversation and someone who closes these loans could change what your next decade looks like. Don't sit on this one. The veterans who win with this strategy are the ones who start running numbers before they need to move, not after. I'm Joe Nelson. Let's get to work.